Welcome to the Cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast. Podcasts are fans of the Detroit Lions, Detroit sports in general, friends and family of mine, whatever it may be. My name is Demetrius. This podcast always acknowledges the super producer extraordinaire, Mr. Mike Ward. So we always start there first and foremost. Today we are in week 4 of the 2025 National Football League season. The Lions hosted the Cleveland Browns this afternoon. We get to do an afternoon podcast. I feel like it's been a long time. But we did a late one week 1, had issues week 2, and then we did the late Monday night one, right? So we're back to what used to be a normal schedule when the Lions weren't good. They only had early Sunday games, and the podcast was always around 4:30, 5 o'clock on a Sunday. So it's kind of nice to get to do one a little bit on a normal schedule. So, week 5, final score 34-10 Lions. It's tricky sometimes doing the podcast because I've already gotten people saying, "Hey, do you even want to do this podcast?" And I don't get it. So I have to explain up front. The name again is Cornbread and Kool-Aid because I love this football team. I watch every play of every game. I look at this differently than a lot of people. Some people who watch and enjoy the podcast, and I appreciate you listening, watching, whatever it is you're doing, being here in general. There is always a degree of, is every game truly worthy of a 1-hour podcast or 45-minute, whatever it is we do, right? Do I have anything to talk about? And so I don't work really hard to make it interesting. I hope you enjoy it. I see the game the same way all the time. I see this football team pretty much the same way all the time. So for me, it's never hard. Even losses aren't hard because the fundamental concept is after a game, a win, a loss, a tie, an ugly win, an ugly loss, an ugly tie, whatever it is, there is this, and this is not unique to Lions fans, by the way. Every real fan I know, no matter who their team is, has this built-in sort of, it's an energy, right, that you just need to let go of. For late games, it's hard to go to bed because you're replaying the game and thinking about it. So it's part that. There's another part of, I would encounter people and they would say to me, "Oh, that one play." Near the end of the game, usually, that one play, if they had just done this one thing, and I never saw the game that way, I would see a play in the second quarter and say, "Ooh, that might haunt us. Oh no, I hope that doesn't bite us." There would be plays like that in all different parts of the game that would strike me as important plays. So that's kind of what we're doing. And so the format, if you want to call it a format, just kind of remains the same. Kind of an overview of what I feel. I think today was the business meeting. That's what it's just something you got to go do, right? And the question becomes, okay, they have the number 1 defense in the league by many measures, the number 1 defense in the league. So I went in this morning with no expectations that it would be either easy or pretty. And I feel comfortable saying it wasn't either. And it's a 24-point win we're talking about, right? I'm going to keep mentioning they won the game by 24 points. So if I sound like I'm not happy, if I sound like it, because when you drop a 50 burger on the Bears 2 weeks ago, that's a complete game. We saw it. It was really nice. Even last week, we left some things out there, but they played really well. Today, they played well enough to beat a bad team by 24 points. And I feel like that sounds like I'm not happy about it because I am. Make no mistake. I always am. But it's really just a business meeting. Going in, you expect certain things, right? And that's what determines how you feel after a game. Largely, what did you expect going into the game? Did you expect them to go in and beat the Browns by 3 touchdowns? Well, yeah, I did. Quite honestly, I did. And they did, by the way. So what's the problem, you say? It's not a problem, but here's the thing. When I watch this team, and I don't know if you guys are the same and always interactive. My brother just showed up. Always love that. We're going to get to him later in the Terrion Arnold portion of the podcast. um, I feel like this team, we're at a point now where the Lions are so good. And let me repeat that. They're so good. We are measuring them against them every week. It doesn't matter to me who's lining up on the other side. It doesn't matter what jersey. It doesn't matter where the game is played. It doesn't matter what time the game is played. Every week, I am measuring the Lions against what I believe is the best version of the Lions. So even the 50 burger on the Bears, I think I text my friend Art and said, we left some points out there in the first half. There were a couple of empty possessions. That could have been 60. And Monday night, they left some stuff out there. Dan Campbell would probably collar me up and go, bro, we're winning these games handily. What's your problem? I don't have a problem. This is what happens when you're this good. I'm happy with a 24-point win at home against Cleveland, but I saw every play of that game. They could have played better. And that's not going to be the tone of this podcast because I don't get down like that. I'm an optimist. I'm very happy. We're going to go over all the good stuff too, but I want it set up right up front because the fear for most teams, I don't have it about this Detroit Lions team is, do you play down to the level of your competition? How do you motivate yourself, right? You know you're going in, you know you're better. They're never going to say it. Before the game, it was, hey, that's a good football team over there, and we got to make sure. Of course, you got to think that. But when you get on the field, do you play down a little bit to the level of your competition? Are you as amped up Monday night in Baltimore as you are home against Cleveland? Because that's the thing that could take you down later, right? So this is just how do you make sure you go out and handle your business? I felt like they did it today. So that's a good thing. I don't feel like they played down to the level. Whatever you think about Cleveland as an overall team, they have a top-ranked defense. Their defense is really good. But you got to go out and play every game because every team is coming for your neck. Every team is trying to ruin your day. They're trying to ruin your season. And they won't all be pretty, although I'm pretty comfortable, right? Good teams get critiqued when they win by 24. That's the good news. The way you do, if you're unhappy with a 24-point win, your team's really damn good. It's probably the thing. Because bad teams lose today. Old Lion teams would have lost today. Even late third game was kind of sort of maybe not out of reach. I think it was a 10-point game. And then Khalif goes back. That's when I was like, okay, that's the nail, right? Could have been earlier. There were some things, but today it happened to be a punt return, and I'm cool with that. So when I look at it and I come in and I say, hey, I don't sound happy about a 24 win, but trust me, I am. It is just when I look at this, I'm measuring the Lions against the best version of the Lions. And I'm not the only one because I didn't see his post game because I wanted to get on pretty quick. They're going to say stuff like, we got a lot to clean up. That's what he means. He's not unhappy, but they know that they're so good. They can play a B plus type game, which they did today, still win by 24. That's how good they are. That's how good they are, that they can play a B plus game and win by 24. That game's not going to do it every week against every team. It's not, right? And you got to bank these Cleveland games. You got to bank that Chicago game. That's why Baltimore is huge, because Baltimore is one that few of us counted as a win. It was one of my 5 losses. But now you're sitting at 3-1. And you got to go to Cincinnati and you got to handle your business next week. You know why? Because after that, you got a 5-game gauntlet where you go to Kansas City, and then you got Tampa, Minnesota, trips to Washington and Philadelphia. And then later you still get the Rams, you get the Packers at home, right? The next 6 weeks, really, if we're sitting 6 weeks from now, let's say they go 5-1 in those games, which is completely reasonable. They go 5-1 in those 6 games, and they're sitting at 8-2 after 10 weeks. There's a bye in there, I think, either between Tampa and Minnesota or between Minnesota and Washington. There's a bye week. But after Cincinnati, they got a 5-game gauntlet, including 3 road games at Kansas City, at Washington, at Philadelphia. That's why you go handle your business against Cleveland. That's why you go to Cincinnati next week and you treat it like a serious trip, because you can't afford to give away any of those. I was on the fence about the first game. against Green Bay. I don't know how I counted it. I think I counted it as a loss though. So in my system or whatever, you're up a game, Baltimore game, but don't give it back. Don't give it back. And what they showed today was doesn't matter who's over there. They get motivated, they come out, and the biggest thing, the optimism is super high, even if I don't sound like it, because the Lions can beat you in every conceivable way. They can beat you on defense, and the defense was really good today. Now, you will say Cleveland's offense sucks. Joe Flacco's the quarterback. Okay, it's all good. It's all good. Cleveland's offense sucked last week. Joe Flacco was their quarterback last week, and they beat Green Bay, right? Oh, we might say, oh, that was at home. This was on the road. Okay, you can say all those things. The people who want to have an agenda and not give the Lions credit for stuff are going to find a way, and I don't even care that much about that. So, so Kenny has revised his. I think your original prediction was 13-4. Looks like he only sees 3 losses. I'm not gonna fight him right now because the last 3 weeks support him versus me, who still thinks it's. I think I had 12-5, and I think I'm shifting to 13-4. Kansas City doesn't scare me. Cincinnati was a scary game initially. We already got Baltimore in the bag. So some of these games don't scare me. Washington doesn't scare me. Kenny might be right. But we will have plenty of time every week to debate that. So I just talked about this game, about how you get a 24-point win and you don't feel great. So how is that? Because I think early they were sloppy on defense, right? Cleveland went down pretty easily. I think you saw some penalties that we still don't like. Kenny's boy committed, I think, 2 on the first drive, and he's just grabby. He's very grabby. That's the word that kept coming to mind. Yeah. Kenny would like me to remind you guys that he got it right last year when he said 15-2, and he did. They were grabby a lot, and there's some silly penalties, right? Even at one point, I think in a 7-7 game, we tried to draw them off sides, and they jumped, but not into the neutral zone. We end up getting a false start. Like some of that stuff, easy to clean up. I still see some mistakes on both sides of the ball, right? There was a big time 2nd and 12. J-Mo was gone. Goff's got to get that ball out there. I think is that Miles might have hit his arm as he was throwing because the ball was way behind. But then later he missed them a couple times too. So there were some timing things. J-Mo dropped a couple. When I say empty possessions or they left stuff out there, right? Sometimes you take advantage. Kirby's getting gift interceptions, but he catches them, right? Anzalone dropped one earlier this year. I think Branch might have dropped one last week. And Branch is good for 1 bad penalty a week. He's a great player. He brings a lot to the team. And I'm not mad at Brian Branch, but sometimes Branch penalties hurt. I still like everything I see about Jahmyr Gibbs, and there are going to be Gibbs weeks and there are going to be Montgomery weeks, and I don't care about any of that. But I saw some sloppiness, and penalties often kill drives, and that hurts, right? We had a back-to-back false starts today. That hurt that drive a lot. But Goff to J-Mo, I don't think it's something that I'm worried about, but they missed at least 2 opportunities, maybe 3 today. Big plays that could have been where drives didn't finish because of those. But sometimes they make plays. So when I talk about Kirby, you talk about Reed, and man, I hope he's okay. But it looked he grabbed his hamstring really quickly, and I hope it's not as bad. But what I saw still was, and I say this probably every week, if you could get rid of the colored uniforms and the logo, and you just see 2 teams, 2 sides playing football. When you're watching a game, sometimes you just look and you say, those guys are better than those guys. It's clear. And when that's the case, you just got to win the game, right? I don't know that they owe anybody an explanation, but you got to win the game. So when Kirby got hurt, I was a little bothered, but he came back, so he should be fine. I liked the drive that ended the first half. Going in 20-17 at halftime, knowing you didn't play a completely clean first half, I actually was encouraged. I was hoping they would come out. I think Art and I exchanged messages that it wasn't perfect, but we wanted to put our foot on their necks. This was a team we should have stomped them out. We ultimately did, but I didn't love the third quarter. Right? We had a turnover, would have been a big play, came back on a Brian Branch hold. Right? That could have been a dagger play. And I'm looking for the dagger play. And when I say the dagger play during a game, when one team is clearly in control, clearly dominating the other team, you look for that moment in the game where it's like, got him. Okay. You see it in the other team. You see it in your team. Okay, this game's over. Sometimes you don't see it until the backup quarterback comes in. Sometimes it's a turnover. And through 3 quarters, and like I said, I think late in the third, it was 20-10. And Goff had missed J-Mo on a couple of plays, and I was just like, I was uncomfortable with execution. Yeah. And then they caught a big ball. This kid Bond caught one along the sideline. And I thought, okay, it's still a game. Still a game. It's 20-10. And our defense stepped up and they missed a field goal, which was a big deal. And then I think J-Mo dropped another one. And I think he only dropped 4 plays I'm thinking about with J-Mo and Goff. And 2 of them I would put on Goff. 1 on Goff. 1 was a good defensive play. And 2 of them were legit J-Mo drops. And so at that point, it's still 20-10. I'm still feeling antsy. We're not putting our foot on their necks. We got to close this out. We need to squash them out. And that killer instinct, or whatever the term you're comfortable using is. And as much as my brother wants me to go on this rant that Terrion Arnold's a bust, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So he didn't have a good game today. I hope he's okay. I think it's his shoulder. I hope he's all right. But it's on the record for some people that they think he's done. Which is fine. I'm fine with that. Not until the Khalif punt return. That's when, for me, that was the dagger moment. I kind of like that the dagger moment came on a special teams play. And then our next possession, we had to punt. And Jack Fox jammed him up inside the 10. Special teams play to me goes unnoticed a lot, unrewarded a lot. And I think they like to use the term complementary football. At that point, that was when it was a dagger and you start to look, because what happens is the Lions are a team where it's hard to get a dagger. Like last year, Buffalo, they kept fighting till the end. I think even in the Reds, the Commanders debacle in the playoffs, they never stopped fighting, right? And you saw things that I often talk about the culture of the Lions. I like the culture more than I like the team. I like the types of players they sign. I like a Meek Robertson. Like I just want to extend to Meek right now because he's a dog, right? I want him, right? There is a mentality that I think good teams have, good players, and if you've got a large enough collection of good players, and you have a good culture, which includes coaching and probably general manager, even up to the owner, at least in the case of the Lions, I think that's what it is. Then you see things that say to you, okay, that culture's right. And so like they were down, I think it was 20-10, and it was a timeout. Maybe somebody was hurt. Miles was kneeling, his helmet was off. But you saw this look on Myles Garrett's face. He's looking up, maybe at the scoreboard, maybe he's looking at an advertisement. I don't know. You saw this look of disgust. It mattered to him. He looked up, they were losing, and he did not like it. He was not happy about it, right? He didn't see any positivity in that at all. And you counter that to whoever number 93 is. He's a defensive tackle. I don't know his name. The game's 27-10 in the fourth quarter. You're down 27-10, and he makes a routine tackle, maybe a 1-yard gain, maybe even a loss. And he gets up and he dances, right? And so for me, that was actually my dagger moment. I don't remember the guy's name. Maybe I should have looked it up. But I remember saying that is what a losing player does. And he's probably talented. He's in the NFL. I don't know anything about his real life. So understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about, I don't think Myles Garrett would have done that. That's your job. All you did was do your job. You stop Jahmyr Gibbs for a 1 yard gain or a 1 yard loss. It doesn't even matter. You're down 27-10. You're being handled. How? How do you have anything in you that says celebrate? Celebrate probably the one play you've made all day. And again, I don't know this guy. He didn't stand out in the game to me, or I would know his name. But when I see that, the punt return was huge. I pretty much knew the game was over. But when I saw this guy do that, their defensive tackle, 93, whoever he is, that's why they're currently a losing organization. Doesn't mean they'll always be. Doesn't mean it can't change. Doesn't mean he can't change. That is something I never want to see a Lions player do. I never want to see a guy down 27-10 in the fourth quarter celebrate a routine play, celebrate doing his job. That's your job, bro. And I don't know that you had a great enough game individually. And even if you did, I don't know that I want the kind of selfish player who makes a routine play down 27-10 and believes it to be worthy of celebration. That jumped out at me. I was like, I'm going to have to talk. And again, I can't express to you, I don't know his name. I don't know if he's a good player. I don't know much about him at all. I know that the kind of player who would get up and dance when he did his job once, maybe he had some other plays, I don't know. But down 27-10, you did your job and you danced. And I think to myself, I don't understand that mentality, but I know that's how you lose. That's how your organization loses. What I saw in Myles Garrett kneeling not long before that was someone who looked disgusted. And he had a great game, by the way. They didn't get any sacks. He was disruptive. He was Myles Garrett. He knows who he is. I think he's Myles Garrett because he doesn't dance when they're down 27-10, no matter what he does. And the other guy is not Myles Garrett because he believes a tackle for a 1 yard gain down 27-10 is worthy of celebration. And I'm harping on this because the Lions have a culture. They have a culture. That's what this really is. Guys, they got talent. Brad Holmes is not back-to-back executive of the year by accident. They have really good players. They do, but they have a culture. Amon-Ra St. Brown, they kept talking about how he might be the toughest person on the team. They need to familiarize themselves with Penei Sewell, maybe. But when a wide receiver is being called tough and they think he's the guy who sets the example, it's really the coach. Wait, no, it's really the GM. Wait, no, it might be Chris. No, it's Sheila. It's the whole thing. You don't dance down 27-10 in the fourth quarter. I don't care what you just did. You can make the greatest play in the history of the National Football League. If you're down 27-10 in the fourth quarter, something in you should say, we're not going to win this game. That shit doesn't matter, right? And I think that's it. So when you're trying to figure out, the Lions don't have that culture. They don't have dudes on the team that do that shit. That's why they're winning. That they're talented. I'm not diminishing anybody's talent. I believe more than anything, it's a culture of dudes that don't do that shit. And they're talented. And they're well coached. That's what it is. And man, I hope I never see that. The day I see that, it's going to bother me. I'll get on this podcast and call somebody out. But the Lions don't do that. So then you get the fumble and you get the dagger drive and you get another St. Brown touchdown and you got your nail in your coffin, right? But I didn't mean to jump down that rabbit hole, but sometimes you see something and you go, what the hell? How is this guy dancing when he made a routine tackle down 27-10, right? Why? Why are you doing that? Yes, Kenny, I did. It's my podcast. I can say shit if I want to say shit. He's over here critiquing my podcast like, who's going to stop me? That was messed up, right? If you think I'm out of line or you don't agree with that whole rant I just did, feel free to jump in the comments. I'm not going to apologize for it. I think that is a losing culture. That's a losing mentality. And if you got a bunch of guys in your locker room that do that stuff, you will lose. You will lose a lot of games. All right. At the end of the day, you don't play great, but you play good. Like I said, B plus effort, and you win by 24 points. It speaks to how literally good you are that you can play a B plus game and win by 24. That's what it says. So I'm going to get to the 3 questions and stop it with my brother bashing Terrion Arnold. Let's get the first one. Hey, I just said this. How good can you feel after beating a bad team at home? See, this is it, right? This is what you're going to hear. You're going to hear on the radio. You're going to hear the hosts and people calling in saying you shouldn't feel good when you beat a bad team. And I think that's nonsense. The rule on this podcast, and you can get whatever you want on the radio tomorrow, you don't apologize for wins. Not in the National Football League, not the Detroit Lions. No. You win games because they work hard. These guys work very, very hard to prepare, to be motivated, to go out and perform. And when you say, oh, well, that team is bad, doesn't count, then I simply point you to Monday night. You don't get to say that today. And Kenny's right. A win is a win, damn it. You don't get to say that today and say Cleveland wasn't good. There's a number of publications that have their defense ranked tops in the league coming into today. So at minimum, you played a very good defense. Number 2, they are the ones on the schedule. The reason you feel good is because it's the only team you could have beat today. You couldn't beat the Rams today. You couldn't beat the Eagles today. You couldn't beat the Packers today. You couldn't. The only team you could beat today was Cleveland. So you went out and you beat Cleveland, the team that beat the Packers last week. So you got to figure out where you want to be. If you want to crown the Packers after week 2 and say they're going to win the North and they're the team that's going to challenge Philadelphia, only to watch them get beat by Cleveland last week, and then we mollywop Cleveland today and didn't even play the best, you don't get to come back and diminish the Lions' win with that bullshit about, oh, they're not that good. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. They weren't really clean in the first half. They weren't clean in the third quarter. They won the game by 24 points, right? Okay, they got a special teams. Whatever. They scored 27 offensive points. They put up 277 total yards, which is not a huge deal, except by all accounts, it was the best defense in the National Football League. They went over 100 rushing, and they gave up 0 sacks. Yeah, I don't like that question. I feel like that's a dumbass Dan question, right? They played complementary football, contributed in all 3 phases. But if you're going to do that, fine. My speech at the beginning was simple. I measure the Lions every week against the best version of the Lions. That wasn't the Bears game. I don't know if it was Monday night. The best version of the Lions was either last year against the Colts or the Jaguars. Those 2 games were almost flawless. I think Goff went 18 for 18 against Minnesota in the first game, which was really good. And they won the game. So I get it. They're so good. The expectations are so high. They can win a game by 24 points. And somebody can ask me, how do I feel good about it? And I just did it. It's the culture, because I love the culture. To me, the games, the amount of points they win by, the number of wins they have, and I'm leaning more towards, I'm getting closer to Kenny's 15 total, although that's going to take a hell of a run, right? To only lose 1 more game. I'm sorry, Kenny picked 14-3. It's only going to take 2 more losses, but let them get through this 5-game gauntlet, and I might be there. You know, there were people after week 1 who completely said, this team is not good. I go back. It's on wax. The podcast is in the archives. I said, I think it's a reflection of them not playing in the preseason. Not that I wanted them to play in the preseason, because if you ask me, giving up that 1 win week 1 because you're rusty versus Goff or Gibbs or St. Brown or Sewell or Jack Campbell getting hurt in a preseason game, no contest to me. I don't even care. What I know is that this team can play complementary football. They can beat you in all 3 ways. They can come out and play a B-plus game and win by 24. When you don't play well and you win a game by 3 scores, the point is you must be really, really good. So, okay, you beat a bad offensive team, and Flacco played like a 41-year-old should play, I guess. But this question is lame. I'm sorry. I didn't even check the name. This question is lame, right? When you have a team in your building and you know you're better, you play a B+ game, you still should win by 24. Now, if you play an A+ game, you do Chicago, you put a 50 burger on them. And there will be more 50 burgers, I guarantee you. The back end of the schedule has a number of 50 potential games. They're there. But today, you played one of the best defenses in the league. You played an okay to good game. You played a good game. For sure, you played a good game. Goff made a mistake or two. They gave up some third downs they shouldn't have, and they committed some dumb penalties. But you know what? And again, I started at the beginning with a different vibe. I'm talking myself to, thanks to dumbass Dan questions like, how do you feel good about, because they won by 20. Okay, here's my short answer. Sorry, I went on a rant again. How do I feel? What was the original question? How can you feel good after beating a bad team at home? Because they won by 24 points and it's the National Football League and you take every win you get and you don't ever apologize. You don't ever apologize for one. So that's how I feel good about it. I don't even know why we took that question. Let me have another one. How concerned should we be about the defensive back injuries? Very, very. We have been consistent, right? I like the depth. I believe Avonte Maddox, Rock Ya-Sin, they're going to bring some depth so it won't be as bad as last year. But we have consistently said, what's the thing that can derail this train? This 13-4, 14-3 train, this NFC champion, Super Bowl caliber train. And we have always said it's injuries. It's injuries. I think I said it in the preseason podcast. I said after the Packer game, on paper, I still think they're the most talented team in football. I said, I think that they're playing themselves every week. I've said it 3 times today. The Detroit Lions are playing the same team every week. Doesn't matter who's on the field with them. Doesn't matter what the jersey says on the other team. They're playing the best version of the Detroit Lions. That's who they're playing against. That's who they're going to get measured against. But I think that to answer your question, injuries can derail this trend. We saw it last year. We know this can happen. This isn't speculation on my part. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You know the thing that can derail this train is injuries because it happened already. But that's why the subtle little signings of guys like Avonte Maddox and Rock Ya-Sin matter. Because if Kirby would have been down for longer, we would have felt better about who was playing safety. Kicking a Meek out to cover for either Reed or Terry or both. Now the hope is that one or both comes back quickly. Problem is we got this 5-game gauntlet coming up. I happen to believe that DJ Reed's injury is worse. That looked like a really bad hammy, something that's multiple weeks. I think TA looked like a shoulder, but have Kenny tell it we're better off without TA. So now it's like, hey, okay, we plug in and we need guys to step up. Next man up. And if you need to go sign somebody, it's early enough in the season where you can go get someone. And it's not Hutch. But Amik, I'm a big Amik guy. Amik Robertson, to me, I literally want to put an extension in front of Amik. Amik is a dog attitude-wise, and he plays really well. So I don't feel as bad. I think Maddox could step up, and I think they had Maddox playing safety today. There's some depth there, and there's some things that they could do. They've got playmakers at every level of this defense, though, if you think about it. Hutch had 2 sacks and a forced fumble today. I think Jack Campbell had 11 tackles. Kirby had an interception. Reed had an interception. They have playmakers at every level. Branch had a couple of big plays and his customary one dumb penalty that he does. But if the injuries are serious, you have the time, you have the cap space, you have the ability to respond. You already lost Rakestraw. So if you think about it, 3/4 of your starting cornerback room are down, despite how Kenny feels about TA, right? 3 of your top 4 corners are down. So maybe you got to go make a move. And it all depends on how bad is DJ Reed's hamstring? How bad is TA's shoulder? If these guys are both going to be out for multiple games, I think you do something tomorrow or Tuesday, right? You do something Tuesday morning. And it's not going to be huge. You're not going to go trade for, but there's some team that's 1-3 or 0-4 who is already like, don't know if we can do this. And you can make a move like that. But I just talked about that 5-game gauntlet that's coming up. You can't go 2-3 in that gauntlet. You can't, right? And again, All those are playoff teams. All after Cincinnati, and I'm not looking past Cincinnati. I'm literally looking past Cincinnati. Got to go win the Cincinnati. Got that. After that, you go to Kansas City. You got Tampa and Minnesota at home. Go to Washington. Go to Philly. Now there's a bye week in there, so by the time you get to Washington and Philly, that's 4 or 5 weeks. So both guys might be fine by then. So it might not be that bad, but we got to get reports on both of them. I don't know how bad they are. All right, one more. Oof, very early, but is it possible Amon-Ra St. Brown could be an MVP candidate? Huh. That's interesting. I wouldn't mind hearing from you guys. I know Kenny and Terrence will give me their opinions. Oh, let me. So I would say to you first that the MVP stands for most valuable player, right? The idea is, in my mind, and I'm way too technical. So the guy who is the most valuable to his team's success. So my criteria says if your team already sucks, that dude can't be MVP. So if you're right, if you're 5-12, you can't say, oh, if we didn't have him, he'd be 0-17, so he's the MVP. Nope, that's not how I would do it. If your team on paper appears to be 9-8, but this guy balls out and you end up 14-3, yeah, I'll consider that. It's not best player, by the way. So first get that. And historically, it's a quarterback award. So, I mean, he had 7 catches for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns today. Where he is for the season, if he stays on pace, my answer is yes. For the season, he had 20 coming in. So 27 catches, about 300 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's where he is. That's a really good pace. That's a Triple Crown pace, right? Triple Crown is leading the league in catches, leading the league in yards, receiving yards, and leading the league in touchdowns. He's got a shot to do that. That's my answer. You Triple Crown as a receiver, which I think Justin Jefferson might have did it a couple of years ago. Somebody did it recently. That's what it would take. It would take the Lions going 14-3-ish, maybe 13-4. And he would have to put up Triple Crown-like numbers to do it because it really is a quarterback award. You're going to have to beat a quarterback. Josh Allen's going to put up insane numbers, and Buffalo's going to win 13 games. It's going to be tough. Lamar might still come back and win 10, 11 games. Mahomes, like Jalen Hurts. It's a quarterback award. I don't want to say no because he is so critical, and he's underrated. And I don't even know if the mainstream media, like the 4-letter and those guys, I don't know if they view him as the best receiver in the league. So to give him MVP, you're not only going to have to acknowledge to some degree that he is probably the best receiver in the league. You're kind of putting him in the conversation for the best player in the league. Now, I believe it's a worthwhile conversation. And you can say whatever you want. He doesn't go deep, whatever. You know what he does? First of all, he works his ass off. He sets a tempo in the locker room, which is super important. But the biggest thing, the number one job to me of a receiver in the NFL is to catch the football. And I'm not trying to be cute here. Your number one job, ask J-Mo. J-Mo can fly. That's great. J-Mo had at least 2 drops today. Maybe a third one, depending on who you ask. The number one job, I don't care if your route tree is phenomenal. I don't care if you can take the top off the defense. What Amon-Ra St. Brown does better than potentially any receiver in the National Football League, it's simple. And again, I'm not trying to be cute. He just catches the ball. Like when Goff throws to him, he catches it. And you can go more granular and really dig into his numbers and say, oh, how many of his catches are for first downs? How many look at there's advanced metrics on blocking, on running plays. How often do they run to his side and he makes a key block that springs a running back, right? It is easy to simply say, that guy has X catches, X yards, X touchdowns. When you dig deeper and you talk about he's the hardest worker on the team, which is something that's often said about him. He's the toughest dude on the team, which is something that's often said about him. And then he does all the other stuff we talked about. He's top 2 or 3 in the league in catches, top 2 or 3 in the league in yards, top 2 or 3 in the league in touchdowns. He's not a Pro Bowl. He's all pro. I think he might be, and it's tough. He's a shorter guy, often in the slot. People like the outside dude, the fast guy. I could do it if I offered you him or JMO, right? It's easy. You're taking him. He makes every catch. So then what's the list? Would you really take AJ Brown over St. Brown? Would you really surely take Jamar Chase? I think that's a conversation, right? And I got Bengals fans that are friends of mine. Would you? I don't know. Justin Jefferson's the one that's really tough. JJ is complete, right? He runs every route. He catches a lot. He takes the top off. Justin Jefferson's the one that makes it hard because so the answer to your question is that if the award was given today, he'd be in consideration. Problem is this offense is so balanced. There's going to be weeks like last week was a demo week. I think JMO had almost 100 today and 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, maybe 2. Whatever. There's going to be JMO weeks. There's going to be Monty weeks. There's going to be Sam Laporta weeks. There might be JMO weeks. Hello, Christopher James Kolb. Appreciate you listening from Germantown, Sussex, Wisconsin. Awesome. I used to live up there. Sorry, acknowledging a new listener. Appreciate you listening. Yeah, I used to live in Jackson, Wisconsin, so I know your area well. Used to work in Menominee Falls. Thanks for joining us. So back to the question about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Could he be? It will be tough to win that award. He could win a Player of the Year or something like that. MVP is largely a quarterback award, and he would have to put up insane numbers to steal the award. So it is lovely. One of my colleagues. That's awesome. So for him to win it, it would take really great numbers. I think that he could. If he does, it would mean that Goff had a great year. It would mean that the team had a great year. I would be very happy to see that. I just like his productivity, what he brings to the team, toughness, attitude. And like I said, he just catches the football. So that's actually a good question. Better than that first dumb question. So now let's talk about what's going up before we wrap up. I appreciate everybody joining the podcast today. Love it. If you know me, you know who I am. You know why I do this. It's called Cornbread and Kool-Aid for a reason. I'm an uber optimist about this team. We got Cincinnati next week in Cincinnati. Again, on paper, tough to say that all the time, but on paper, the Lions are the better team. These injuries aside, the Lions are clearly the better team, and I never care. I think that it doesn't matter where the game is played. You went into Baltimore Monday night, played a really good game, and beat a good team in their building on Monday night. You should be able to go to Cincinnati Sunday afternoon, probably be the game of the week, be the national game, the game that everybody sees, and do the same thing. The measure is always the best version of the Lions. So play the game you played 2 weeks ago at home against the Bears. Play the game you played Monday night. You know what? Play the game you played today. That's it, right? You can't revert back and play the game you played at Lambeau week 1. The team that played 2 weeks ago beats everybody. I don't care where the game is. The team that played in Baltimore last week beats almost everybody. Like, I'm never going to disrespect the Eagles. They find ways to win. They're the world champs. I'm not going to disrespect the Eagles yet, right? Even today, they played a pretty solid game today. Buffalo is what it is. But guess what, guys? If we play Buffalo, it'll be in Santa Clara, California in early February, and I won't give a damn. So that'll be fine with me. The beauty is this. I don't need to project. I don't need to do any predictive analysis. We get to play them all. If the version of the Lions that played Monday night in Baltimore shows up in Cincinnati Sunday, they win that game. Like I said, if the version that beat the Bears 2 weeks ago in Detroit, they win that game. If the version that showed up today, they win that game. And then you worry about Kansas City and Tampa Bay and Minnesota and Washington and Philadelphia. That's the beauty. Injuries are the thing that scares me. No team scares me. No venue scares me. Injuries is the only thing that scares me, right? And other people get injuries as well. I think that this year, I'm going to take a very calm approach. Last year, I did a little bit of up and down. They only gave me a couple of times to be down. I simply think they're the best team in the league. All due respect to Philadelphia. And we'll get to go to Philadelphia week 12 or whatever and figure that part out. Even if they lose a game, listen, that's the cornbread and Kool-Aid right there. When they lose another game, because they will lose another game, it won't matter. We're going to get on this podcast and we're going to talk about them against themselves. Like, did they play to their level? And is a Chicago game the benchmark? Maybe it's Baltimore Monday night. The team that played Baltimore Monday night beats everybody. Possible exception of Philadelphia. You can send that team to Santa Clara to play Buffalo in the Super Bowl, and I like their chances. The team that played the Bears, damn sure can send that team to Santa Clara in February to play anybody, and I like their chances. Today, they can play better than they played today, but there's still 10 teams on their schedule that couldn't beat the team that played today. That's the good news, that you can play a B-plus game like you did today and beat almost every team in the league. The bad news is your schedule isn't filled with bad teams. So Tampa's not a bad team. Kansas City, still Kansas City, and that game is there. So we will get a chance to show who we are. They will get a chance. I'm not going to take any snaps. I'm not going to catch any passes. You will get a chance to show who you are. You will get a chance to validate what we think. And for me, it will be every week the same way. 24-point win at home against Cleveland is great. I'm thrilled. They could have played better. And I don't think I'm a jerk for saying that. And I would be surprised if Dan Campbell and many other people don't say the same thing. But that's good news. That's a great thing. So those are sort of my final thoughts on the day versus Cleveland is you played a B-plus game and won by 24 points. And that makes me very happy because you're not going to play an A game every week. You can't play an A game every week. It's not possible. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Welcome, Christopher. I hope you join every week. I hope you tell many more friends at our company about it. I don't know who your boss is, but I thank him. And again, I hope you enjoyed it. And we will be back a little bit later next week because I think we got a late afternoon start. So early evening next Sunday, we'll be raring to go to talk about the game at Cincinnati. I feel like we'll be talking about another win. I hope it's a comfortable win and a even better game than they played today. So again, appreciate everybody joining us. Thanks again to the super producer extraordinaire, Mike Ward, and we will see you next week.